My name is Ari Kornhaber. I am a former trial lawyer and one of the founders of Esquire Bank, and today I will be your moderator for this webinar session. Today we will be covering bold moves, growing your contingency fee law firm post-pandemic. Feels good to say that. We are honored to have our guest speakers today, which include Glenn Lerner of Lerner and Rowe Injury Attorneys and Lerner and Rowe Law Group, along with Peter Webb of Scorpion, a full-service marketing and technology company. Glenn Lerner has been practicing personal injury law for decades, and not only has he built a local name in the various states where he practices, but a national reputation as one of the most successful trial lawyers in America. He has recovered nearly $2 billion for his clients and has been voted best personal injury law firm across a plethora of awards and associations. Glenn deals with a large network of attorneys all over America to provide legal services in cases of personal injury, medical malpractice, hazardous products, and more. A graduate of Duke University and Tulane Law School, Glenn has built his practice into one of the largest law firms in the country, fighting for the little guy against large insurance companies. It's an honor to have you with us today, Glenn Lerner. Peter Webb consults with law firms to create and establish digital marketing strategies, and he is the best at what he does. Peter focuses his time on assisting law firms to help them develop a distinct advantage in highly competitive markets, specifically with case acquisition strategies. Having been with Scorpion since its inception in 2001, Peter has helped thousands of law firms develop marketing strategies and generate more cases at a better acquisition rate. We are truly in the presence of greatness. Peter, so thrilled to have you here with us today. Glenn Lerner, I'd like to start with you. First of all, thank you again for participating in today's webinar. And, I've gotten to know you, and I think it would really help frame today's discussion if our registrants and attendees got to know you a little bit better as well. So maybe you could share with us your origin story, right? You started from the bottom to grow one of the largest, most successful contingency fee law firms in the country, as I mentioned, with nearly $2 billion in recoveries for your clients. And you've opened up practices and offices in multiple states. Can you share with us your origin story, where you came from, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, Ari, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. So I started in Vegas in 1991 after I finished law school at Tulane. The truth was, I took a year off when I graduated in 90. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went out to LA. I was going to be a guitar player. Wasn't quite good enough. Went back to New for a while. I was going to be a waiter. I don't like waiting on people, though. So I followed my parents out to Vegas. My dad had just gotten out of jail. My father went to jail when I was 5 years old, and he was in jail until I finished my second year of law school. And I think that shaped who I was as a person. I was always a fighter. I was a tough guy, and I think that stood me in. It's done well for me as a businessman through the years to have that type of resolute spirit, I think, from growing up the way I did with my dad in jail. Anyway, so I went up to Vegas in 1991. I did a little bit of everything. I worked for a firm for 2 months, and I realized I couldn't work for anybody. So I bought a little practice called Budget Legal from a friend. And, within a few years, I actually went bankrupt within, 3 or 4 months of buying Budget Legal, because the guy sold me the business, all the cases, but he had taken all the money. So I was left doing all the work, but he had taken all the money up front. So I wasn't a very good businessman in the beginning. Nevertheless, so I just finished law school, just started my own business. I went bankrupt in the beginning of 1992. But I built Budget Legal up into a nice little practice, about 20 people, did a little bit of everything, but I became a really good lawyer. I was doing a lot of trials. I mean, at one point I'd done a jury trial in front of 5 of our 7 Supreme Court justices that were eventually on the Supreme Court in Nevada. I became a good trial lawyer. but I understood people. I learned a lot about business, went through a lot of ups and downs. And everybody that listens to me today, please, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. The only thing I can tell you is I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had a few successes, and my successes have been bigger than my failures. But I've made a lot of mistakes. And so when I talk to people, I'm very relational. I'm always hoping that if I can tell you some of the things not to do, it's going to shorten your learning curve. Because I think that's what we all want to do, shorten the learning curve. And I think then you can get to your ultimate point much quicker. So anyways, to go on, after 7 years of doing a little bit of everything, I was only doing a few PI cases, but I was terrible at charging people. I did a murder trial once for $3,000, and I won. And, everybody's like, man, you're terrible at charging people. I was doing these giant divorces for $700. I guess because the way I grew up with my dad in jail and us having to pay lawyers all the time and this, I just couldn't do it. And then I saw personal injury and people signed a contract and the check came to us. I like this. I used to make less than the guys at McDonald's. Now I had the chance. I was getting a third of whatever I got. So in 1998, I really decided to just make our practice full-time personal injury. And by chance, we had a woman in our office that worked for a guy named Brian Loncar, who was one of the most successful personal injury attorneys in Texas at the time. Sadly, Brian passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a good friend and a fine guy. And Brian was really instrumental in helping me in the beginning, gave me a lot of the forms, helped me. And he said, hey, man, stop doing this advertising we're doing. And I started it. And with my little one call, that's all slogan, $10,000 a month, my first month in August of 1998. I got 66 clients for $10,000. I'm like, I think we stumbled onto something here. And that was kind of the beginning, man. I was, at the time I was in, my address was an old converted garage in a building. It was 713 and a half South 7th Street in Vegas. I wasn't good enough for the front building. Eventually we took over the whole building and the garage. But it was certainly humble beginnings.
It's a great origin story. So thank you for being so open and sharing all of that with us. And before I turn it over to Peter, I think I just want to transition to Peter. So Glenn, could you share with everybody what your approach was in terms of marketing? Like, how did you approach marketing and growth to where you are today from those beginnings?
Well, for me, the whole thing about marketing isn't just about marketing. It's not just, with all deference to Pete, he's fantastic. It's not just all online. It's not on TV. It's not just billboards. It's not just radio. There's no get rich quick. There's no get rich quick in this business, people. Come on, you're going against monsters in so many of these markets around the country. You're trying to build a brand. So this takes a lot of intestinal fortitude. We started at $10,000 a month. Within 3 to 4 months, we're up to $20,000 a month. Within another 3 to 4 months from that, we're up to $40,000 a month. Every cent we made, we put back into the business. In the beginning, when I say we, it was me. Eventually, my partner, Kevin Rowe, came on, and he's been with me basically since '98. He's the key to, just the day-to-day. He's allowed me to do what I do, be kind of the vision guy and grow the business. And he's been that guy in that corner office just managing it. And I don't think there's anybody in the United States better at managing an office day-to-day, because this becomes a business. And if I can make one point that everybody adopts, you're either the trial lawyer or you're the guy running a business where people that practice law work for you. You cannot do both. Never the twain shall be. Never the twain shall meet, You are managing a law practice now. If you want to be successful and build a large law practice, you can't be the guy in court every day, writing the motions, doing this. You hire those people. I mean, it's simple as that. You are running a business now. And so you're going to employ the fundamental tenets of running a business if you want to be successful.
Peter, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and to share your subject matter expertise. And I love hearing, where Glenn came from and, his strategy of investing back into the firm, slow and steady, sustainable growth. From your perspective, what can a law firm do to improve the quantity and quality of their case acquisition concurrently?
First of all, I want to thank you, Ari, and actually everyone over at Esquire Bank for putting this webinar together. It's a lot of work, and so I'm honored to be on here. Additionally, Glenn, it's an honor to be joined with you in today's discussion. I've watched your growth over the 20 plus years, and you're definitely constantly doing things right. And so there's a lot of parallels with what you just went over and actually what I can obviously provide. So in terms of improving the quantity and quality of case acquisition, Glenn, you said it best. There's no get rich quick overnight cheating the system. There is none of that. What you have to do is look at it from a strategic standpoint. So when I look at a client acquisition strategy, especially that's going to be fueled with the marketing and advertising, I look at making sure that the plan fits the firm's goals and that those goals are attainable. Okay, what you said is spot on. You started with 10K, right? And then you grew it and then you reinvested it to 20, 30. You didn't dump everything you had, close your eyes, hope that it's going to work. That's not strategic. That's a hope, right? And so what I look at with a strategy, especially with marketing and advertising, are 4 key things to determine, does this plan make sense? Okay. What those are sustainability, adjustability, diversification, and transparency, right? So today's law firms are leveraging technology today to ensure that they're making the best decisions possible with their marketing, but maximizing exposure and converting as many potential clients into actual signed clients is obviously the ultimate success. That's what would determine the return on investment. So if you don't mind, I'll just break down those 4 components so that way we all have a better understanding what that is. So sustainability, Glenn, exactly what you said is exactly why it's on here. It's what you spend, what you can do long enough to get a return so you can reinvest in yourself, in your brand, which is your firm, right? So you want to make sure that the budget can be spent in perpetuity, right? So if, for instance, you get a big settlement check and you want to reinvest it, you're eager to do so, don't dump it into 1 month of TV advertising and hoping that 10K will generate the 66 clients, because those are the golden years. That's not happening anymore today. So you got to make sure that you have sustainability. Then going to the adjustability, right? Which is the marketing and advertising needs to be versatile. It needs to be fluid because certain months, certain times, certain channels may work while other channels may not work as well. You have to be attentive to those things and have a proactive approach with the ongoing campaign improvements in mind, meaning that way you can kind of take away the things that are not working well, reinvest in the things that actually are working well. That's how you take advantage of every dollar, every opportunity. You also are getting rid of waste, right? In terms of your budget is going to things that are not producing cases, which brings us to diversification. As the saying goes, don't put all your eggs in one basket. The same applies here. The reason why, all of your clients are not going to one single location. They're going all over the place. They're on a cell phone. They're watching TV. They're at a bus shelter. Wherever that is, make sure you identify who's your ideal clientele. What's their profile? What do they look like? Where do they go? What are their interests? You want to make sure you're putting your money so that way you're getting in front of those people, right? And answering their top questions and what their interests are. And the better you do that, obviously, the better you'll connect with them, right? So you don't want to get in front of just anybody because that's obviously not going to be nearly as effective. You want to get with people that have the highest probability of becoming your client. So you got to make sure that you obviously have diversification in hand. And the final component is transparency. I talk to so many firms that don't really know where their money's going. They know they're spreading it around and they're so afraid of turning things on or off because they don't know if that's working, right? And so sometimes when I talk to their intake staff and they say, hey, yeah, I just asked, where'd you hear of us? Oh, I saw you on TV, right? Or I saw you on the internet. And I say, you're not even running a TV campaign, meaning it's not even actually that accurate. It's not accurate enough to be actionable. So when you know where your dollars are being spent, where you're getting and what you're getting in terms of the return on investment and how you can scale that to get more, that's smart money.
And you're so thoughtful and deliberate, both of you, about these business decisions that it's so interesting to hear it from you. So thank you. I want to ask Glenn a question from an audience member. Glenn, how many staff members did you have before you started mass marketing? And follow-up is, how did you assure that your systems were solid enough to market broadly?
Before we really started marketing, we probably were maybe 10, 12 people total, myself and one other attorney. And I think this whole business is about processes. You know, I'm the biggest Bill Belichick and Nick Saban fan on the planet because I'm all about putting in. You give people a vision and you give them the processes. This is how we're going to get there. You know, and then that's your culture you built. We're gonna get you there. You know, but you have to get people that are willing to buy in. Not everybody buys in. If they don't buy in, they're out. I mean, you can't have people that are going to buck the culture because ultimately that's the only thing that matters in your business is your culture. And that's been one of the hardest things with the pandemic. I think everybody in the country lost a lot of their culture. The culture is the girls talking in the back and guys throwing the football around a little bit for a couple of minutes in the office. It's that energy, and it's people collaborating and talking about stuff and being a team. And we've lost that. So we've been really, really focused. And I hope everybody that hears this really focuses on with your people, getting together with your people now, getting your people back together, doing activities. You know, we're having our people every couple of weeks, we're having the heads of the different offices take everybody out for the night, the entire office, take everybody out to a bar, you know, 1 or 2 drink minimum, no, but even get drunk, but have fun. Relationship with one another, get to know each other again. That's who we are. The firm is called Lerner and Rowe, and it's Glenn Lerner and Kevin Rowe. But that's not Lerner and Rowe. Lerner and Rowe is those 370, 400 people that are in our office. They represent us every day to the clients. This isn't like the old days when I got to speak to every man. I would take those calls at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Every night client, I was speaking to the craziest of the crazies. I got them. I don't do that anymore. I can't do that. You know, it's so many clients. You need to have processes in place and people in place to do that. But the only way it's going to run effectively as the embodiment of who we are, Lerner and Rowe, if those people buy in. Because that's Lerner and Rowe, that secretary, that receptionist, that intake person, that attorney underneath us. And that's what we're trying to do.
Staying with that line of thought, I guess, and you said a key word there, because over the years, you and I have spoken, and I've been so impressed at your approach to intakes. So I want to focus on that a little bit. You know, what golden nuggets of advice would you give to the viewers about an effective intake strategy?
I mean, it takes the entire business as far as I'm concerned. I don't care who you are. I mean, there's some amazing attorneys in the country. Gosh, I mean, you hear about Mark Lerner and everybody else getting these big verdicts, but I don't care how good an attorney Mark Lerner is. He's nothing if he doesn't have the case. You got to sign that thing up. And so, what do you have in place? You know, only as far as I know, there were roughly almost 4,000 cases. Cases. There were roughly 3,500 to 4,000 law firms that advertise in one manner or another in the United States. I got this little thing on the screen. Yet only under 400 of those firms have some sort of an intake software. So that means everybody's going on these antiquated ways of writing it down on paper. This accountability is the #1 word when it comes to intake. What are your processes in place to make sure that those clients are being called, handled, taken care of correctly? Are you listening to calls? Are you coaching and training people? You know, we have our friend Gary Falkowitz coming several times a year. Gary's one of the best intake guys, and he's a close friend of one of the best intake guys in the country. Anybody that wants to really work in the intake, speak to Gary. He'll come in. He gets your people excited. I mean, all I say to Gary every time I see him is, Gary, don't make me call you probation officer. I mean, Gary is out of control, but it gets you excited because intake is everything. You know, when my people talk, what are they saying to the client? If you're not telling those people, man, I am so glad you called Lerner and Rowe. These guys are the best. These guys care. I love Glenn and Kevin. I love working here. If you're not giving affirmative type answers to people's questions, affirmative statements like that tell people they made the right choice. We have to control those conversations. I mean, there's so many things, and anybody that wants to ever talk about intake, it's my favorite subject. So gosh, I'm willing to talk to anybody because I promise almost everybody that's listening on this webinar, you got big holes in intake. And we are crazy about intake, and we still have holes. You can't be complacent. We are striving for perfection with intake, knowing that it's not attainable, but you certainly have to keep shooting for it, you know? Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because they make the first impression on these potential clients that ultimately, hopefully for you, become clients. And I know that your intake specialists believe that if they retain your law firm, they are going to get the best representation in the country. They truly believe that. And that's the beginning of the client experience. So, Peter, how does an overall client experience affect case acquisition?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, the better experience you provide to your clients, the better results and the cases you acquire will be. What Glenn said is spot on. One of the first things when I get brought into a firm and they say, hey, Peter, I want to get more cases. And I say, perfect, let's dive into your practice and let me understand what that process looks like and what is it like. And I'll talk about a couple of those things. I'm paying attention to that. And they say, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the marketing and the advertising. I say they go hand in hand, right? Because most firms today that I talk to are focusing on increasing traffic and exposure, and advertising as the only goal. Although that's of critical importance to sign the cases, you have to get them, to the door before they walk in the door. It's not the only area to pay attention to. Focusing on conversion being an equal component to that traffic and exposure is going to improve your brand. It's going to improve the reviews that you have and your word of mouth referrals. The beauty of word of mouth referrals, you don't pay for them like you do with advertising, right? And it's how you're regarded. Just one thing, I like to define conversion as the process of turning an interested individual who needs representation into a signed client. That's the conversion I'm talking about. So to create that conversion, you must give them the reasons why your firm is the right firm for them. So there's a couple key areas that I at least look at: improving your overall experience online. These people are coming online, they're looking for answers. Typically, if they're going to be your ideal client, they're going to be injured or part of the family that is injured. So showing them that you can be trusted, there's that human element, right? That you care about their well-being. I know Glenn absolutely advocates for this, which is why the intake process, they're not just, hey, thank you for calling, what's the nature of your case? There's feeling behind it. They care, right? They're not just there to put their time clock in and then they're done with the day. They're actually there because they want to make the person feel like they've been heard. And that's such a critical component. And so that's one of the big things that I look at. Again, another thing to pay attention to: the attention span of an individual today going online looking for representation is less than 2 seconds. So a couple factors. If the content on your website is so generic or so, statistically based, or there's filler content or jargon, most content today on legal websites, I don't know if you guys have gone on your websites recently and you read it, it is such a far cry of what you would actually verbally say in a consultation. You need to make sure that they parallel each other. You need to make sure that you're being real, right? And that this communication is coming across them. There's overload of information and there's so much there. Really what you have to do is you have to look at what's the process look like internally? How are you really catering to your ideal clients so they know you care, not just to settle their case? Those are a couple quick tips that I would absolutely recommend.
Yeah, Glenn, any comments that you want to add to this? Because I also want to ask a little bit about your brand and how you've invested in the communities where your offices are and given back to the communities so that you're creating this brand equity and almost, a client experience before your communities are clients.
Yeah, well, I think as I said earlier, and I think Peter's echoed my sentiments, that this is really about brand building. And with brand building, we always want to know, well, what is my return on investment? So with billboards or online or TV. And the problem with, especially for our firm, because our firm is so dependent upon our branded phone numbers. For example, like in Chicago, where we're 222-2222. And we got our jingles everywhere. So they're tied to it. So everywhere we advertise, we are advertising for our brand. So it's very tough to track, except online, because you can use the little numbers that they click on online, and so you can track those. But for everybody that wants to know, how does every cent get accounted for, It's very difficult when you're building a brand. It's kind of a mishmash, and you see how the whole thing comes together. But that's part of building a brand. It's all the pieces coming together. And so, especially in the beginning, I think you can see it when you're advertising. It's not too big, but as it grows and you're in so many different mediums, it becomes more difficult to track what's working. Because the truth is it your online that's effective? If they go online and they pick you because they say, "Oh, no, yeah, that's right, I should have called them. I know their number," you know? So did you get that from what you built on TV, or because they saw you online?
And can you talk a little bit about what you do in the communities where you practice law to give back, to again, add value to your brand?
Oh, we do it, but it's not to add value to our brand. I think we do it because it's incumbent upon us. Gosh, you can't just keep going into communities and growing in communities and not give back to the communities. And my partner's been instrumental in this. He really started it, and this has snowballed. That I don't know if there are too many firms in the country that have a bigger philanthropic arm than we do. Without Lerner No Gives Back, we raise millions of dollars. We raised over $1.1 million this year just from our 2 golf tournaments just in Arizona. But we feed 10,000 families a year for Thanksgiving. We do a lot in the community, but the ones that benefit the most are us. I mean, gee whiz, you never realize how much you really have, because we always want more. We want a bigger house, a faster car, another office, but whatever crap we always want, because we're never satisfied. And you never realize really what you have until you see what others don't have. And it humbles you, and it's a blessing to be in such a position to touch people's lives like this. And I think no matter what, we do it because it's incumbent upon us. But I think as a result, it's kind of made us like Robin Hood in our communities. And that's really fun, especially going up the way I did with my dad in jail, to kind of be that type of guy now that could be there and be, one of the part of that fabric of the community now, that what we've become. And the most important part of that is it really galvanizes your employee base. Who we are as men for our employees, I think it means a lot to them that we care so much about our communities, what we do in our communities. And people want to work for people that they, I don't want to say admire, but they trust and they believe. And, certainly bosses that don't harass you, and bosses that, the worst thing anybody could ever say about me, we had Bible studies, we had Bible studies several days a week in my Chicago office. We had a really strong, my faith, obviously, and the leader of the Chicago office was a very strong Christian. And so an attorney, when one of his employees was coming to work for us, he said, "Yeah, good luck going to Bible study every morning over at Lerner's office." That's the worst thing you can say about me, man. I'm pretty blessed as a man. But I think what you do in the community, it really galvanizes your employee base. It makes them... Our whole goal is to have people feel like they're part of more than just a law firm. And that's what we say. We're more than just a law firm. We're part of the fabric of our communities. We are in our communities daily. We have 2 people that are in full-time ministry that are out there saying, how can we serve? What can we do? And it's not to get brownie points with people. "Oh, yeah, here's a turkey, but if you get an accident, come see me." It's just because, man, look how blessed we are. Everybody on this call, you think about it, I mean, we're lawyers, no matter what. Even if you have a little practice, if you have practice 20 times bigger than mine, you've been pretty much blessed more than you ever imagined you could have. You've done better than you probably imagined you ever would have done when you were a kid. And it's pretty nice. So to be able to go out and give to others and, touch lives, that's a pretty amazing thing. And it means so much. I mean, our people, they love what we do in our communities. And that's the biggest culture builder for us, I think, more than anything else. And that's why it's so exciting for things to be opening up now and really to be able to start doing some fun things. So in Indiana, we have a big cornhole. Cornhole's big in Indiana. I didn't know that. I can't play it very well. Kevin's good at it, though. But we have a big cornhole tournament we're going to be putting on in Valparaiso in August. We'll do things like that with like a big giant giveaway. It's just things to bring the community together, meet people, relationship, And I think everybody should, and anybody out here listening, we have 2 people in full-time ministry and myself, Kevin. Anytime you want to speak or get some pointers, or we'll even send somebody out to help you set something up, a Gives Back program. We love doing this stuff more than anything else. It's an amazing thing what you can do in your communities. I love going to speak at homeless shelters, things like that. That's my calling, so it's really an amazing thing.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us. Peter, back to you. Earlier on, you used this phrase smart money, and we use that all the time. And we have an interesting perspective. We get to see what some of the most successful law firms are doing with financing and how they're running their law firm like a business. And, what do you think is allowing for smart money post-pandemic growth of law firms today?
Fantastic question. And just before I get to that, I just want to comment on one of the things that a couple of things that Glenn actually brought up. The concept of you can't fake it is such an important component, which is you can tell Glenn believes and breathes and thinks about the philanthropic side of things, right? And I bring that up because your firm is your brand. Whether you advertise or not, or do anything, how you're perceived is critical to your future case acquisition. I bring this up because so many firms that I talk to are not doing it. And they say, oh, can I get more cases if I just throw some money at this charity or this sponsorship? They don't believe it. It has to come from inside. And that also ties to the intake. The intake. People want to work for good people. If they know you believe it and you're doing those things, they're going to be happy to come to work. They're going to feel that they're helping people by getting on the phone and having the representation being established with the firm, right? And so not to leave it at that, just a couple quick tips. If you don't know or you haven't thought about your branding or community involvement, because the goodwill makes a world of difference, think about this. Figure out what your firm or your brand's purpose is, right? It's clear what Glenn's is. Figure out what yours is, right? Examine your competition, determine your differentiators, right? And that way that can start playing into your messaging. Identify who your ideal clientele are, right? Because your messaging needs to communicate to them the most. Educate and enlighten. Don't just sell at people. Hey, you need to hire us. And kind of enlighten them as to why. The better informed your potential clients are, the easier it is for them to hire you, right? And ultimately use your happy clients to your advantage. Get more reviews, testimonials, word of mouth cases. Doing that will help build and fortify your brand moving forward, because people buy the brand more than anything, because that's one of the first things that they look at. Now, one other thing, if you don't mind, in terms of, I just wanted to give a couple key things. If you're talking about the intake, right? Or you're looking at what experience do you give people, right? So a couple things to look at, questions to ask yourself. Is the receptionist or whoever's answering the phone, are they friendly and approachable, right? Another, is the intake staff, are they knowledgeable and happy to speak with you? Do they know what they're talking about? Or are they just trying real quickly to get you off to someone else? Right? You need to make your potential clients feel like they made the right choice by contacting the firm, right? And that is, again, why the intake process is so darn important. And ultimately, can your firm be reached inside or outside of business hours? Or does it take like a long time to receive a call back? Because these people, if they're injured, they're going to call you and they're going to call everyone else. And the one that they feel is the best fit is ultimately typically the one that they're going to choose, or at least has the best chance for success. So I just wanted to get those things because it's right on the tails of what Glenn said, and I think it's relevant and pertinent to those things. But Ari, going back to your question, couldn't agree more. Smart money law firms, I talked a little bit about it earlier, right? Which is in terms of what's allowing for growth today, not yesteryear, but today, post-pandemic growth. So first of all, let's define smart money, which is just as simple as the ideal use of any investment money or capital you have access to, right? The goal is obviously to maximize your money so you get the most out of it, right? So law firms that are using smart money are typically ahead of the rest, right? And so to that end, when a law firm's looking for growth in today's landscape, at least what I do is I start asking a couple key questions that are tied to their goals, right? So one of the key questions, what are the goals you've recently set to accomplish this year and through the next 3 years and beyond? It's such an important question because most of the answers I get are either I haven't or the answer is not actionable, meaning I can't create a strategy off something if they just say, I want more cases, right? And so what you do is if you do have those goals set, you're already ahead of many. But then the next question is, do these goals motivate you? Because if they're motivated, they're going to push you to accomplish them. You're not going to get as distracted, right? If it's to help people, that's something that you're going to want to help one person, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. Growth makes sense because your purpose is in line with what you should be doing anyways, right? Another way to check if those goals are actionable, it's an acronym, SMART, smart, measured, actionable, realistic, and time sensitive, right? That will allow you to really position these goals so they can be actually accomplished, or at least executed to be accomplished, right? And then you're going to want to look at some of the things we've talked about today, right? To make sure that sustainable growth is there. Intake process. What's the experience that you provide your potential clients, and how well is your firm regarded overall and as a brand, right? So you're going to want to look at those things, look at your online reputation. Interesting fact, 2 out of every 3 people form an opinion about a law firm after reading 1 review. So if you are not paying any attention to that because you're in trial, Glenn talked a little bit about this earlier, you're either managing the business or you're in court or in trial handling clients, but both are necessities in terms of future progress. So I would take a look at a lot of those factors. One final thing is make your money work for you and not against you. This is right up your alley, Ari, because you want to avoid the peaks and valleys that plague many plaintiff-focused firms by considering the financing of your caseload, right? Being self-financed firm used to be something to strive for, but now typically prevents you from the true growth potential because you're limited by your budget or what you have available. When you have access to more capital, you can do more with it. And so I just wanted to mention that because there is definitely some synergies with everything we're talking about here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Such valuable information there. And it's, obvious but worth noting that contingency fee attorneys representing individuals, the little guy, are going up against defendants with much deeper pockets. Some of the biggest corporations in America, the insurance carriers, the self-insured defendants, the municipalities, etc. So, Glenn, maybe we could talk about the financial struggle that contingency fee lawyers deal with on a daily basis, right? It's this balancing act. It's a capital-intensive business. You need capital just to run your business. You need capital to pay for case costs. And if you want to grow your business, you obviously need capital to invest in the growth of your business. So what financial challenges have you experienced over the years while you were building your law firm?
One of the things you and I have talked about as we become better and better friends is one of my mistakes that those of you on this phone shouldn't make, on this Zoom shouldn't make, is you shouldn't try to go it alone. For so long, we built this out of our own pockets. I never borrowed a cent, so we've never had any debt. And that's certainly admirable to build a practice as big as we have without any debt or this much debt. It's pretty amazing. But you know what? It was stupid. We funded all our own case costs. Millions and millions of dollars in dead money that I paid taxes on. You've seen what it is, and you're like, oh my God, Glenn, come on, I thought you were smarter than that. And I said, so did I. I would absolutely advise everybody in here, if you're not a client of Esquire or whatever bank, I love Esquire Bank for one reason, because of Ari. Ari understands this, he's done it. Most banks don't understand our business model. Most of the bankers that, they're not 1/50th as successful as some of the people on this Zoom. They want to tell us that our cases are worth nothing because the clients can walk. But we have things called leads. Our case is the same as any other business's inventory. Such a small percentage of our cases leave that you can basically, 97% of those cases are money in the bank. So what's your average fee? That's what it's worth. And so if you can leverage your cases and turn that into capital to grow your business, and certainly, people that understand this business like Ari does and Esquire does, it's a no-brainer. And it's something that we finally see in the light as we're growing in terms of our mass torts practice nationwide and diversifying. It's, finally we're starting to put ourselves in debt.
It's a very interesting conversation, and one that I have on a daily basis. We've studied this, and about 77% of contingency fee law firms in America are still self-financed. And here we are coming, hopefully, out of the pandemic. We're calling this the post-pandemic discussion. And these self-financed law firms have such an opportunity to leverage this low interest rate environment that we're in and use this smart money. And look, it entails change. And some people are resistant to change, and a lot of self-financed law firms wear that as a badge of honor. But stay-at-home orders led to a decrease in intakes. Court closures led to an inability to get full value for your clients. There are cash flow interruptions that are happening and are going to continue to happen until the cases are being tried, or at least the threat of trial is there. And lawyers are coming now and coming forward and saying, you know what, I need help. First of all, what's the ethics opinion in my state that allows me to do this? Number one. Number two, what is the language that I need to include in my retainer agreement that allows me to finance my case costs in an ethical manner? They've realized that lawyers who are self-financed are also lenders. They're lending money to their clients in the form of case costs, right? We've discussed this at length many times. And they're not good lenders. Why? Because they're using their after-tax dollars. Like you said, you've earned your fees, you've paid your taxes, and now you're going to use these after-tax dollars and lend your clients money without charging interest. So providing interest-free loans with after-tax dollars. I have friends on Wall Street, and when I was practicing law, they said that business model doesn't make sense. On top of that, contingency fee attorneys get poor tax treatment. Although these case costs are case expenses, not in the eyes of the IRS, right? These lawyers cannot write off those case costs as expenses in the year that they're expended on their tax returns and then treat them as income when the case is resolved. So again, Glenn, you've seen the light, and now you've made the change. You've embraced the change. What do you say to the attorneys who are still, not sure if that's something they should do? They're concerned about maybe losing clients and things of that nature, because I do hear that, and it's just not a reality.
I think one of the things you can always, the chance of losing your client is de minimis. And you could just speak to the clients and say, gosh, I'm paying, I'm happy to keep pursuing your case, but you're going to pay all the costs. Do you want to do that? No. Then looking at paying 5, 6, 7% on the money that I borrow at the end of the case, that lets us fight, keeps your case alive, and gives you a chance. Why would you even balk at that? It doesn't make sense. And so, we've had clients that are going to fight us on it. It is what it is. But for the most part, I think it's such a small amount, especially the price of money right now. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that the rates are so good. And especially you guys, with your bank, you guys really understand this business model. And so you're very good at knowing how to leverage people's inventories and being fair about it. A lot of banks that don't understand what these cases are really worth, and what especially a guy's past performance. Past performance are indicators of future results usually. It's simple as that. If a guy's been successful in the past for 10 years, he's probably going to be successful in year 11. If you have 7 years in a row that your average fee has been between $6,000 and $7,000, there's no reason to think fees are going to go down to $500 this year, And so then, what your inventory is going to be worth, and you're able to protect yourselves, but still be very fair in the rates because you understand the model. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to talk to you guys and really grow their firms by doing so.
Yeah, you bring up a couple of great points. And when I was practicing personal injury litigation, representing plaintiffs, the law firm I was at was financing their disbursement. So I have that firsthand experience of sitting down with clients at the retainer agreement stage and at the release stage after cases resolved, presenting them with the itemized list of disbursements and discussing the interest line item and different conversations you have at those touch points, right? And typically the clients felt even more confident in me as their attorney in our law firm because we had the strength of financing behind us to go up against these big corporate defendants. And we were using the case cost financing to bring in the best experts. They're more expensive, but they also lead to the better results. So I think when you frame the discussion that way, it's a smart way to use smart money. And I know, Peter, we've had this conversation as well, and it's just, again, another area where smart money can be used to reinvest in the firm. And like you said, try to level out the ebbs and flows of this irregular cash flow model.
Absolutely. I meet with so many firms that they're unfortunately not paying attention to a lot of the topics, which is why we're having this webinar today. It's to educate, enlighten, successes, what prior mistakes turn into, future plans of, okay, we're not going to do that. And that's obviously the whole point of today. And so it's, in terms of the peaks and valleys, there's no need to get that great settlement check and then crash while you're trying to build more. And then there's no need to do that anymore, right? You talked about the interest rates. You talked about all the accessibility that we have today. And so focusing on the funding, focusing on the experience, focusing on your reputation, your brand, what do you believe in, right? And getting that in front of your potential clients. Everything we've discussed today is intrinsically related. Everything pays attention. Glenn talked about it. It's really difficult to track in terms of where a case came from, if it was word of mouth or the internet or this, because today there's not really online, offline anymore. People are on their phone watching TV. Well, which one was it? This one or this one? Which one could? So you have to look at it kind of at a global level and just be pushing forward all of the things and make sure you're attentive to all the things we've discussed today. So I couldn't agree more.
I want to pay attention to some of the questions that are coming in through the chat. If someone's taking the time to ask a question, I want to present it to the panelists. Glenn, one for you, back to the intake discussion. How many intake people do you have, and how do you decide on how much is enough, the right proportion of intake specialists?
We have roughly 40 people in intake specifically that handle the intake calls, and probably another 15 to 20 receptionists. I think it depends on the area. I think I'd always rather have more intake than miss that call. If, for that one missed call, the average fee on a case, you can hire 3 extra receptionists. So I'd rather have people sitting there. But, the vast majority of people are always pretty busy, always calling, because we have such we have a very viable mass torch practice now, so that keeps us busy besides all the other states. But I think you want to be proactive. Those people are on the phone all the time, and I'm always looking to add more people in intake. I never want to miss out one call. You don't know what that call is going to be. That could be your biggest case ever, that one call. But when we're on this for 1 second, one thing I want to make sure everybody knows, everybody, when that call comes in or that email comes in, you got to be on it. You got to be a hustler. Everybody's, I think a lot of people are very complacent. They're like, Mr. Johnson can get you in Tuesday at 3:00. I'm telling you right now, if you're putting people off, if you're not signing that person up this second on the phone with DocuSign, or they want to go think about it, talk to their wife, you're not following up nonstop with them, they're going to your competitor. They're going to see 50 other commercials, 30 other attorneys online hitting up, 12 other billboards driving home. You have to take advantage of that when you have them on the call. Once you have them on the call and you get them to DocuSign, the chance of them dropping you is 1 or 2% out of 100, And so I just really, people have to hustle more. When we have online inquiries come in, we usually respond between 15 seconds and 1 minute. So the people a lot of times like, wait, I just submitted that. How did you guys get in touch with us so quickly? We want your case, A lot of people, we get back to them daily. You lost it, baby, This is a hustle business. Nobody out there on this thing right now is probably running a 4.40 or dunking a basketball. Nobody has any extraordinary skills, but you have a law degree. And that law degree allows you to represent some poor schlub who may have just gotten hit by a tanker truck or this or that. And by chance, they picked your name out of a hat and they're going to make you rich. You did nothing. It was the luck of the draw. You got them. You just can't blow it. So what are you going to do? You have that chance. And that person right out there getting that call right now, one of the participants in this Zoom right now, you get that case, you settle that case, you just became my competitor. If you don't go buy the big house and the big car with your money, you put the smart money into building a brand, you're my competitor. That's what's happening. Smart people are building brands. They get lucky, one big case, so they get a case, they sign it up and send it out to Brian Panish. And the next thing you know, you got another competitor in your market. So I don't know if I answered your question. I probably went off one of my tangents.
Listen, there are a lot of participants here. I encourage everyone to stay to the end because we're going to be offering some valuable opportunities to all of you. Glenn, And Peter, let's talk about where the practice of law is going. Because if we look back, it's changed quite a bit. And I know we've talked about this. We believe that change is going to continue, consolidation and things like that. Glenn, everybody wants to hear from you your thoughts on the future of the practice of this type of law and the changes that we could expect.
I think before the pandemic, I think we all knew that there was a reckoning coming to personal injury law in the next 12 to 15 years with the advent of autonomous vehicles, cars having better and better technology where, when you get too close to someone, it makes some noise or your blinkers do this or do that. It's harder and harder for cars to crash. So as you get newer and newer cars on the road, you have fewer and fewer older cars that don't have those technologies. You're going to have fewer accidents. Now, we saw with the pandemic, a lot of our roads had 10% of what they're used to. Everybody that's on this call, us included, we saw our cases go down for the year. We were very blessed that our cases didn't go down to the same percentage of the number of people working or people driving, but still, it changed our business model, and it's not going back. If you think that it's going back to normal, that first question you had, the new normal, this is the new normal, people. You're going to have a higher percentage of people working out of the house. Those glory days of just accidents falling from the sky, it's not going to be quite the same as it was before. I think it's going to, a lot of people obviously worry right now. I mean, it's simple as that. And I'm a contrarian, so people are worried. That's when I think there's opportunity. I truly believe consolidation is coming to our business. You have to. There are too many lawyers, too many guys fighting over for cases, and it's just not enough opportunity for the smaller players. I think there's a lot of opportunity even for bigger players that just don't want to do this anymore. A lot of guys are getting older. They're looking for exit strategies. This is a perfect time. It's a different world in this business model now. Social media is playing a bigger and bigger part. How do we as lawyers become relevant on social media? How do you take what we do and become relevant? It's a different world now. I wish it was the old days where you put 10,000 on TV and everybody's home and the phone just keeps ringing. That's a good return, $166 per case. That's not happening anymore. Case cost acquisition price is going up every single year as people are spending more online, more and more people are advertising on TV for fewer and fewer cases. Go to Vegas. Peter, what's it like in Vegas looking at billboards? It's crazy, right?
Well, first of all, I see you I'm like, Glenn, there he is again, the yellow billboard, bus shelters, you're everywhere. You're ubiquitous in Vegas. So
I love that word ubiquitous, but so there are a lot of other guys everywhere. There's a lot of choices for people. There are a lot of choices for people everywhere in this business model. You're just trying to figure out how do you say, look at me, and Peter, you know how to do this. It's only one aspect of it. There's just so much that goes into this, to building that brand. I reckon we could talk about this for hours because I love this business model. I think it's a truly unique business model. We get people that really aren't businessmen. We come in with law degrees. I mean, we're taught this stupid word, taught. I thought it was a tart when I first went to my first class in Tulane. I was like, what, a class on pastries, torts? And so that ends up being what I pursue for my career. But how this metamorphosis from a guy that doesn't even know what the word means to it becoming pretty good at this as a businessman, turning it into a business model where you employ the fundamental tenets of business, and you almost turn this into a widget factory. Because I think that's the only way you can approach this to be successful and to really provide the best service. Because people, you are not the commodity. The client is the commodity. They have all the leverage now. They don't like you, they'll give you a 1 star. Whether you deserved it or not, that 1 star knocked out $100,000 of your TV advertising in one blow. So get over yourselves. You are not the commodity. The client is everything. How are you going to service that client? How are you going to take care of that client? How are you going to love that client and make that client want to, say, oh, those guys are the best? It's tough. It takes a lot of work. It's continuous training. And we're not perfect. But when you drop the ball, how do you say mea culpa to a client and get them to turn that 1 star? My partner, Kevin, his whole life is just handling negative reviews. taking 99 out of 100 of those that, because usually it's just a cry for help. A one-star review isn't somebody that really thinks you want. It was a cry for help. They don't know how else, maybe the lines of communication got broken, whatever happened. So instead of just saying, oh, forget them, we'll make it up with 25-star reviews, you do the math, it still doesn't get you quite back up to 5 stars. So he's on the phone with every one of those things. Mrs. Johnson, what happened? How did we drop the ball? Why did you write that? I've looked at the notes. It's not quite what you're saying. Let's talk about this. And 9 times out of 10 times they'll remove that or even turn it into a 5-star review. The customer isn't always right, people. The customer just wants to be heard. Remember that. Your people, your clients want to be heard. They want to be respected. It's not just about money.
Amazing. Well, we're rolling up to the top of the hour, so I want to give each of you a chance for final thoughts, but I also want to let the participants know we just put up a polling question, and Glenn and Peter were kind enough to offer their availability, myself as well. If you would like to speak with any of us one-on-one, we're not just offering a consultation with Scorpion or someone from Lerner Monroe or someone from Esquire Bank. We're here to have business conversations with you at your convenience. So please don't be shy. It's a sincere offer from all 3 of us. Also want everyone to know that Esquire Bank is about to publish an ebook, a white paper, if you will, of 5 things, 5 bold moves that every contingency and key law firm should be doing coming out of the pandemic. So if you're interested in that, please let us know, because it will be published in the next week or so. Otherwise, I thank everybody for your time, for your attention. It's been an honor to be with you, Glenn. It's been an honor to be with you, Peter. Open it up for final thoughts. Peter, you go first.
Okay, I'll go. Glenn just brought up so many great points, as well as tips, as well as actionable items that firms can actually do to look inward and measure what they're doing versus what they could be doing. In terms of the consolidation, and I'm not going to dive back into it, a lot of my points parallel exactly what Glenn talked about. Look at this. Number of cases might be declining due to smart cars, what have you, whatever trend that looks like. Number of new attorneys and attorneys practicing. Every year, more and more attorneys. I see this every single day. A new attorney, hey, the internet's prolific, I want to get cases. And I say, well, why should they hire you? You need to cut your teeth. You need to do this. You need to do this. Just because you have access to money doesn't mean that people should necessarily hire you yet, which is why looking at what's your purpose, what's your differentiators, a lot of the things we discussed today will help actually answer those things. We are seeing a general consolidation, right? We have large law firms, Morgan & Morgan, buying up firms, acquisitions and things like that. Their brand gets bigger and bigger, more of a household name, right? And so David versus Goliath, if you're a smaller attorney, smaller boutique practice, you have to really look at what money do I have to put towards this? Is it intelligently and strategically positioned where I can actually get enough exposure, enough return on investment to actually make it so it's sustainable? So again, there's quite a few factors there, but like Glenn said, we could talk about this all day. I am so proud to have been on today's webinar and discussion. I hope that we do many more of it. I always enjoy. Obviously, Ari, you and I have done many of these and we'll continue to do so. Glenn, you're fantastic. And I always learn something new every time we talk.
Thanks, Peter. You're awesome too. We got to sit down when I'm in Vegas, man. You're pretty smart.
Glenn, final thoughts.
Man, just, everybody out there, just don't drink your own Kool-Aid. That's my favorite thing to tell everybody. You're blessed. You're a lawyer. Go treat your people like the gold that they are. You're nothing without your people. Treat your clients better than you're treating them today. Just really, you can't fake it. Like we were saying before, there is no faking it. You either like people, you either love your employees, or it eventually comes out in the wash. I'm a very relational person. Some people are very transactional. What can I get out of this person? What can I get out of that? You don't want to be that way. Care about people. I think it's going to come back to you. You treat your people great. If you treat your people great, you know what they do? They treat the clients great. Happy employees make happy clients. Angry employees are bitter people, and the clients know it. And I think it ultimately comes back on you. You know, it's pretty easy to treat people nicely. You know, so just treat people nicely, be a good husband, good wife, and a good parent. Love God, and I don't know about there's a whole bunch else I can tell you. We appreciate it greatly. I appreciate the friendship, man. And everybody, God bless you. Anybody who wants to reach out to me, I always love talking to people. I've been doing this 30 years. Made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned a lot. And I like talking to people. I really think it's incumbent upon all of us as lawyers as we get farther along. You know, it's not looking at people as competitors. We all said we wanted to do this because we want to help people. So if I can impart a little bit of knowledge that I've learned through hard knocks to somebody in Knoxville or somebody in Nashville that's just starting a practice, man, that's awesome because it's ultimately just going to help people. That's what we're trying to do, is help people. And fortunately, I guess, you know, we get paid really well for people going to taking one for the team. You know, some poor person gets hit by a bus and you get a third of that, and all you got to do is treat them great.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for everybody who attended today's webinar. There's a recording of it. You could share it with others. We didn't get to every question, and for that I apologize. Some of them were very specific to your firm, etc. We'll do our best to answer those questions post-webinar. Otherwise, thank you very much. Really appreciate your attention today. Take care, everybody.